My Podcast, lady dudes. You're about to enjoy a podcast from the LOWTREE Studios Podcast Network. If you want more great podcast dudes and lady dudes and dudes and other peoples, go to LOWTREEStudios.com. It's the studios. Okay. Goodbye.
Welcome to Wreck My Podcast, where this week I'm with my girl who gets blackout drunk all the time.
It's me.
It's Madison. Just kidding. So we were recently did an episode on Mrs. Doubtfire. I did with Breaker and Bane, and I thought I was going to be doing a Robin Williams series moving forward, which we're going to do. There's some Robin Williams episodes we're going to get to down the line here, but Madison and I, who is my wife, if you're a new listener, she is on this show with me today. We started watching an HBO series called The Flight Attendant.
Yes, we're a little late to the game,
a little
but
bit
we're
late.
Here.
Yeah,
We've
here.
arrived.
We're here. If you want to move that mic a little bit closer to you.
Closer.
There you go.
Oh, I thought I was being so loud.
No, you're perfect
I
now.
was being quiet.
I'm
okay,
a very
sorry.
loud person.
Yeah.
So.
Opposites attract.
Exactly. So we're covering The Flight Attendant, and we're marketing it under the Wreck My Big Bang Theory. Because I think you and I were both more morbidly curious is why we watched this, because we had only ever seen Kaylee Cuoco as Penny in Big Bang Theory.
Yes, and I remember when this came out, there were a bunch of like articles and videos like ending explained. Mm-hmm. So I thought it was another like sitcom, and then when I saw that, I'm like, wait a minute, what is this about? So it was like kind of piqued my interest.
Yes.
But it still took us like 2 years to watch it or something, right?
No, I think it came out November of last year, 2020.
Oh, so not that long ago.
So I don't think it was super long. Yeah, November 2020 is when it released on HBO Max. So yeah,
I thought it was way before then. Never
we
mind.
got to it like 6 or 7 months after
Okay,
the
we're
fact.
not that lame.
Yeah, so we wanted to cover this just because it was a very interesting watch. And if you listen to our Around a Round Table episodes, which is every other week or every 2 weeks or so, we do kind of a segment show on this podcast.
Right.
My most recent Stoked on This, which is what we give you as a suggestion of what to like watch or what we're super excited about, was this show.
Oh, was it?
At the time, we were only 4 episodes into it.
Okay.
Now, I think we have a little bit to say about the ending.
Correct.
After doing some research and a little bit, I'm a little bit more okay with the ending than we were originally, but it's never good that the ending is better once you actually do research, because your regular audience isn't really going to, like, they're going to watch it, they're going to make their decision, and then that's how they're going to go.
Although, to be fair, we've said this, because we did the episode on nocturnal animals, right?
I don't think we did an episode on nocturnal
okay.
animals.
Or maybe we did it on Enemy or something. We did some kind of topic together, and I had said, you and I are not very good at, like, picking up on the symbolism of things.
Yeah.
So we have to, like, go back after and be like, what did this mean? Like, what is it? So I feel like it's a little bit hard. Like, I need it to be a little bit more straightforward. I feel like this was one of those things, too, where you're constantly like, what is happening? Like, what is the subtext I am supposed to be picking up on right now?
Yeah, and I think I wrote in my notes here how I would describe it is Mr. Robot light.
Correct.
It's not as heady as Mr. Robot is, but
which I'm grateful for.
Yeah, very much though. You're like trying to follow along, and the whole time it was fun because you and I were trying to predict what was going to happen, or
as we do.
Is it the unreliable narrator, or is everything we're seeing not correct? Like, because you're kind of
trying to expect the least expected.
Well, you're kind of watching this girl lose her mind, kind of.
It seems that way.
So it's very interesting to be like, okay, are we missing things? And actually, there were a lot of like background things we did miss.
Yes,
there is a lot of symbolism in this, which it's not so over the top symbolism. You won't get it. It's pretty in your face symbolism. But they're also, like, I would say the ending was more disappointing just because we were like, oh, that's where they're going with this?
Yeah, correct.
More than, oh, that doesn't make sense to me. I'm kind of confused. I wasn't confused at all. I was just kind of like, that's a little weird. But
well, and I was telling Jordan, too, like, I'm grateful that it wasn't, like, Lost, where you invested, like, seasons and season for, like, a pretty lackluster ending.
Yes.
But I do feel it's the same thing. When you have such, like, unpredictable episodes and you're trying to keep up, I feel like they almost set themselves up for failure, because there's very rarely an ending that, like, can live up to all the like hype of the episodes. And like when you watch shows like this and you're like trying to figure it out, sometimes you come up with better ideas in your head than what they, at least in your opinion, what you think is better, how you would have liked it to end.
Well, this show is kind of interesting, and we'll get into it in spoilers and stuff, but the ending, like, the show was written very well, and it felt like Breaking Bad in the sense how, like, Breaking Bad will introduce these things that don't make sense throughout the season, but it all wraps up beautifully at the end of, like, every season or story arc or whatever. Where this, you were like, okay, it's going somewhere. All these things are going to tie together eventually. This is so interesting. How's it going to tie together? Then it was almost like they got to the end, and they're like, I don't know how to tie this together, so we're just going to throw this completely random thing that never was referred to the whole season as, like, the twist. And I'm kind of like, okay, but that's cool and all, but also it felt like an ad-lib.
Yes.
Like, they were writing a story, then all of a sudden at the last episode, they stopped and they handed it off to someone else and gave them no context and said, just write an ending off of these prompts.
Or they didn't want to wrap up the story because they wanted a season 2 or whatever.
Well, surprisingly, as I was telling you, this was made to be a limited run. It was only made from beginning to end with a thought of one season, like, done. It was received so well, they're now doing a second season. And I think it's that weird scenario where the writers and the producers all are like, well, there could be a second season. So they're trying to make it stand alone in case it doesn't do well, but also open-ended enough that if it does do well. And sometimes that gets sticky because then it's like, well, you don't have a finite ending and you don't have a cliffhanger either. So you're just kind of like in limbo at the end of it.
Look, if there's going to be a Fast and Furious 9.
Oh, I can't wait.
Okay. All of these things, Land Before Time 15.
Classic.
Writers know there's always a way to keep the story going.
So I always say this as a joke, but there legitimately is a Titanic 2. Like, there's not another part of that story.
There's a Grease 2. I could go on about
Grease 2
that.
I get, but I'm like, literally Titanic is about, like, the freaking ship sinking, and then they made a sequel.
Yeah, it's too much. But I'm saying, if there's money and there's a way, and I feel like now, too, with social media and people being able to, like, really interact and, like, show how much they like it, like, it's got momentum behind it.
Agreed. So we're going to go into our first segment here where Jordan explains the movie quickly.
Yep.
I'm going to give you guys, this is where the spoilers start coming in. We're not going to be ambiguous anymore. We're going to be talking about specifics. So if you watched it, hey, listen along, hear our opinion. If you didn't watch it, maybe go check it out if you're interested. Otherwise, if you don't care about us spoiling it,
then here it comes.
Here it comes. This might save you like 8 hours of your life by listening to 45 minutes of us talk about it.
True story.
I mean, I don't think it was that bad. I still would
No,
recommend
I'm just saying it's true.
It.
You could listen for 45 minutes versus 8 hours.
Exactly. So here we go. Here is the story.
Oh yes, it's time for Jordan to explain the movie quickly.
Cassie Bowden is a flight attendant who parties pretty hard. After waking up next to a dead body one morning after a one-night stand, I said that really weird. After waking up next to a dead body one morning after a one-night stand, she panics and tries to clean the crime scene so she doesn't go to a Bangkok prison. This proves to be a bad idea as now the FBI is on her tail and she has to take it into her own hands to prove her innocence. As she very poorly plays detective, she uncovers a whole money laundering conspiracy that revolves around the deceased man's family. So now she's also caught in the middle of mob bosses and paid assassins. All while this is happening, Cassie is slowly losing her mind due to the trauma she experienced as well as repressed memories from her childhood. We continually see Cassie hit what we think is rock bottom, only to find out she has further to fall. After teaming up with a disgruntled assassin, she finds out her newest boy toy is actually trying to kill her and that she is in possession of account numbers that holds millions of dollars. There's some stuff about North Korean espionage and treason in there, so, you know, there's also that. In the end, Cassie clears her name, stops the assassin from killing her, reconciles with her past and drinking problems, and I guess is going to be a CIA agent now. I don't know. The end was really kind of but still pretty good show.
Honestly, you wrapped it up very well.
Yeah, that's all it was. And I love the part where it's like, okay, girl, trauma, all this stuff going on. Then all of a sudden it's like, now she's in the middle of mob bosses and paid assassins.
Yeah.
Also, there's like a C storyline about North Korean espionage.
Okay, but this is the thing, because I'm sure we're going to start getting into it,
Yeah.
is that the whole time you're watching it, when she's like in the middle of dealing with like the mob bosses and all that stuff, you're like, okay, this is a little crazy. Like, it kind of seems like she's just kind of stumbling into these like situations, right? But then at the end, they're like, "Oh yeah, you can be a CIA agent." I'm like, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about?"
Everything she
like,
did was by luck and accident.
yes, why? Like nobody actually wants her to be What are you talking about?
She was not a good detective. In fact, she almost made it worse for herself because people kept telling her, stay out of it. And every time she went into it, the FBI thought she was more and more of the suspect.
I was just like, I did not. I'm like, what are you? No. That's my thing always, where they're like, they have to make them like the girl has to be the superhero.
Yeah.
Like she can be. I'm like, stop with enough. Like,
I did appreciate the fact that they didn't make it seem like she was actually like good at what she was doing, that she like it was literally luck and other people around her that were keeping her going.
And that's what the CIA is looking for.
And I don't like that at the end they're like, oh, because you're just such a hot mess, we're gonna recently sober after being like the most alcoholic person on the planet
since the age of 10.
Yeah, we're now going to let you be a CIA agent. It's like, no.
I was just like, this does not make any sense.
No, it made no sense whatsoever. I thought it was like, what was weird was too, okay, so like one of her flight attendant friends, Megan, is the person who like ends up stealing secrets from like the government and giving it to North Korea unbeknowingly. Like she thinks she's doing corporate espionage, and then it ends up actually her like falling into treason. I thought that was going to like wrap into the story somehow, and I guess it kind of did with the fact that at the end Shane is a CIA agent who saves Cassie, who's there because of Megan. But I'm like, that's not the wrap up I wanted. That was like such a sporadic, random reasoning.
Well, and I think the wrap up too was like, she had this moment with Cassie where Cassie was like, I'm sorry, like I was so wrapped up in my own world. And I feel like one of the reasons they try and like normalize Cassie like making this world believable, I guess, is because everybody is doing something. Like the lawyer friend called in a favor and then now had to do stuff to pretty much get disbarred, and then the FBI was doing things they weren't necessarily supposed to be doing, and then Megan was like doing like, everybody is doing something kind of outlandish, so it's not so weird. It's not like all of them work like 9 to 5 at Wells Fargo and just like that's it. Like they all have these like crazy lives, so they're trying to like normalize it. I guess that's like,
I will say
how they end up saying why she needs to have this storyline.
I will say this: what is interesting is I think the thing that shocked us the most. So at the end, what happens is like Cassie is fighting this assassin dude who was pretending to be like interested in her.
Yeah.
And you think like she's going to end up winning and shooting him, but why doesn't she shoot him? Just because she doesn't?
No, she like shoots him, but she like misses. She went to Stormtrooper.
Yeah, Stormtrooper Academy.
Training Academy.
And then her flight attendant friend, who's like the gay best friend throughout the whole show, pops into the room, shoots the dude, and is like, are you okay? And then you find out he's a CIA agent the whole time who never told anyone, which is the most unbelievable thing ever. I'm just like, this guy showed no... But then when you go back, and I was reading, I'm like, okay, this actually makes a little bit more sense. They go, if you watch him, he's actually very interested in what everything Megan does. Like, he's always like, oh, what's going on with Megan? Or like, what is she doing? Or like, hey, like always trying to keep tabs on her. And you think he's just being like a nosy gay character.
Sure.
And you think it's a stereotype, but in reality, he's playing that up to keep tabs on her as a CIA agent. And you're like, okay, you actually are kind of like, okay, that's interesting, because if you pay attention, you do notice something is up with him.
Right.
And then what's interesting is they were like, they wanted to write it, and they're like, it's almost like two movies were playing at the same time, but one's in the background. Where the main movie is like, let's say, Total Recall, you're watching that. Then all of a sudden, like, RoboCop intersects with it. And you just see like a few like segments, and then it pops out. And that's kind of what this was like. No, there's a whole other movie you could be watching about Shane, the CIA agent, trying to follow up with this North Korean espionage and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like, that's not our main focus. But like, it intersects. I'm like,
right.
I get that the concept is there. I just feel like it was really clunky and out of left field, and most people are going to go, what?
Yeah. I also think too, I'm like, if their game plan is for a season 2 to shift it, and now you see the story of Shane going after Megan, and like our girl Cassie isn't really in it, like now she's a background character, I feel like I'll respect the story a lot more. But if they're going to continue on and Cassie's going to be a CIA agent and like work with him to get Megan, I'm going to be like, this is the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
And actually, we're going to get into it because this show is based off of a book.
Okay.
I forget who the author's name is. It's a lady. Did I write it down? I should have written that down. I didn't write it down. Bummer. But we're going to get into the differences between the book and the and the TV show. One of the similarities is that they both become CIA agents at the end, I believe. But
Who's both?
Both the book and the TV show.
Oh, not both characters. You're saying she does.
She does, but we'll get into that later. So let me ask you a question after watching this. Does this wreck your Big Bang Theory? Like,
no.
Does it wreck the idea of Kaylee Cuoco to you?
No, I was gonna say it is very interesting. I think you agree with me. Watching her performance in this is actually insane. She
killed it.
Is so talented. But I feel like since I only knew her for years and years and years as Penny, it does take me out of it a little bit. Only because I'm like, okay, she's Penny. But also that's not really fair because I'm like, she's also playing like an alcoholic, like slutty blonde girl, which is also what she kind of does at Big Bang Theory. So I'm like, I mean, it's not really fair, but I'm like, I thought she did a phenomenal
There were some
job.
moments, especially there's a moment where she's in jail and
Oh
she
my
calls
gosh.
her brother and has a breakdown.
It's insane.
And that was probably like, I was like, this is Oscar worthy, how her acting right now. It was undeniably some of the best
and
work
when
I've
she
seen
was
in
in the like hotel room the first time and she was looking at herself in the mirror and she's like, get it together. Like, and you like really think she's going crazy. I thought,
yeah.
Holy
well,
moly.
I have some fun facts later we're going to talk about some things with her as an actress.
Okay.
And hey, mad respect to be pigeonholed and come out and do something that crazy.
Yes.
That's some Shia LaBeouf level, like,
I know.
acting, right? Like, creation of an environment.
It sounds like she was the executive producer, right? So she was probably like, I am very passionate about this role and like, I'm going to cast myself.
So get this. She never read the book. She heard the premise and she thought it was such a good idea and wanted to be in it so bad. Yeah. She called and bought the rights sight unseen.
Oh, wow.
Because she was like, I think this is going to be amazing. And I think she even said, she called and was like, not Kate Hudson, but she mentioned another like actress' name. Like, did she buy the rights yet? No, I want them right now. Like,
that is so
this
funny.
This was her being like, I'm done with Big Bang Theory. I want to put that in the past, and I want something that's going to skyrocket and show people what I can do.
Right, and she did amazing.
Yeah. So let's talk about a few things, though. What did you think? Overall, good?
Oh, yeah. I would recommend it for sure.
Yeah, I think
for
so,
sure.
Too. So let's talk about some weird things I noticed in this show, right?
Okay.
And Annie, her best friend lawyer, what's with that shower in the middle of her apartment? It's just like out there in the middle of the living room.
Well, also they're trying to be like, yeah, we're like in a little loft and look how trendy. I'm like, I don't think that's any architecture's design.
No, like just like there's. I was like, where's the toilet? Is that like next to it, or is it a toilet in its own room?
Apparently, everything's just out in the open.
Yeah, and they did that as like they purposely built it that way, so that it was like, oh, Annie is like, it's kind of more of like this visibility of like, oh, you can't hide from things and stuff like that.
Right.
Like her character.
Also, they wanted to show her boyfriend's butt.
Yeah, and it was supposed to make for a funny entrance.
Yes, I think that's
which I really liked him as a character.
I did too.
Great. So there was a memory because a lot of this TV show is her like having like going back in her memory and kind of like talking to her subconscious, who takes the form of the dead guy that she woke up next to.
Right.
But she kept having flashbacks of her childhood, and a big premise of this is she remembers things incorrectly. Like, she remembers her childhood being very sweet and fun, and then when she actually remembers the actual memories, it's like a very traumatic, dysfunctional childhood.
Not toward her necessarily, but it ends up hurting her, of course, but she...
It explains why she is such a dysfunctional person now.
Why she's an alcoholic.
Well, there was a memory she kept having about these dead rabbits hanging in a shed.
Yes.
And her brother, like, looking in and catching her. And I always thought we were going to find out she ended up being, like... I thought that, like, what one of the twists was going to be is when the assassin was coming after her, she's actually been playing him the whole time. And she's kind of this sociopath herself.
Right.
But no, they never explained that.
I feel like the reason they did that is because the assassin had the thing where he was hanging the cats. And so it's like he even says at the end, we have so much in common, like you're crazy and like all this stuff. And I'm like, they're supposed to be kind of parallels. Like they're both kind of crazy and chaotic and all this stuff, but she still has the subconscious or the conscious and the other guy didn't.
Well, this is what I thought it was, which is confusing. I thought that memory was more of a symbolism because rabbits symbolize innocence.
Right.
And there were multiple times in her memories or in her life there would be a rabbit and she would eat like a statue of a rabbit and she would break it, or there'd be a rabbit during a traumatic experience that would like look at her and then hop away.
Yep.
I thought this was like symbolism of her subconscious like killing the rabbits because it's like she killed her innocence.
Right.
The problem with that is every other single memory she had actually turned out to be a true memory. She like once she like got past the repression of it, she was like, oh my gosh, this is true. I always thought this was like fake or it happened a different way. So I'm like, why is this the one thing
also you don't know that she did it? The dad could have done it and she walked in on it or something.
And the dad was a hunter. It's not uncommon
and
to
he wasn't
hang
a
the
great
rabbits
guy.
because you can cook rabbit.
Yeah.
So they might have hunted the rabbits, and she was just like, but there was that whole scene about how when the plane crashed in their backyard, which is also just like out of nowhere.
Yeah.
But like she was running to it. She's like, that's when I wanted to be a flight attendant because I wanted to help people. But then she remembers, no, I ran to it because I wanted to see dead bodies because I was like enamored with them.
She was like drawn to the chaos.
Yeah. So I was like, they were kind of pushing towards this way of her being a sociopath.
Yeah.
And then they kind of just reeled it back real quick.
Right.
And like, no. So I wonder if they'll explore that more in the second season. But
maybe.
I don't know. I thought that was kind of weird. It never got addressed. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So I was really upset about this. And it's kind of like that instance where you're watching a horror movie and you're getting mad at the characters because you're like, what are you doing? This is basic. So the end scene when they go in the hotel and she knows there's an assassin coming after her.
Correct.
They walk in, take a real quick look around, and are like, okay, we're clear.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to go get you some coffee. I'll be back. They didn't check the bathroom tub where the shower curtain was.
They didn't check the closet.
They didn't check the closet. I'm like, you didn't check all the areas in a hotel room that someone could be hiding.
They literally checked under the bed. I'm like, he isn't a monster. This is a real life assassin.
So, and he ended up being in the tub behind the curtain. I'm like, you people are idiots. You know there's a trained assassin after you, and you don't check the most common places someone would hide.
Yep.
So dumb.
Yep.
And I'm like, you have the gun. Like, be looking.
Yeah.
Shoot into the damn tub. Like,
I don't know what they were thinking.
Yeah, so that kind of made me really upset. I'm just like, oh, this is so unrealistic right here. So bad. All right, so let's talk about some, I'll give you some facts about the TV show, like who's in it and whatnot and all that good stuff. So as we said, came out November 2020, HBO Max exclusive. I mean, if you have AT&T, you get HBO Max for free your first year, so you have no excuse not to go check this out, people. It was filmed on location in all the cities. They went to Bangkok. They went to Rome.
Amazing.
Like New York. They got to film a jet set to film this thing. Like, come on. How can you not sign up for that?
That
would be amazing. This is super weird. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a 98% critic score. So, like, it is revered by the critics. But it has a 68% audience score.
Oh.
And I attribute that solely to the end. I think people were so off-put by the end, the audience. And I think critics get it because they're like, oh, weird things happen in intersections and da-da-da-da-da. But audiences are just like, I spent 8 hours to get to this.
Could be.
Yeah. I feel like that's why there's such a big gap.
It is quite a large gap, for sure.
Yeah, huge gap. Normally it's a bit closer. So as I said, this was based on a book by the same name. So obviously as a TV show, they have multiple directors. Some of the directors also directed things like The Following, which is a show I've been wanting you to watch. Kevin Bacon, Colts. It's amazing. There is they did The Boys, Dexter, Arrow, Supergirl, The Flash. Now, I say that because Greg Berlanti is one of the executive producers. He is the mastermind behind the CW Arrowverse.
Got it.
So, like, obviously he's pulling some directors from, like, Arrow, Supergirl, The Flash. I think he also worked on he's been around a long time, and most of his stuff is very, like, drama. But this was the first one where I think it was a little bit more, like, mature.
Yeah. It's still drama.
It's still drama.
But yeah,
but
not
it was less
CW,
like CW
drama.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. It's not a soap opera per se.
So we have someone named Steve Yoki who wrote the teleplay of it and everything. He also wrote on Supernatural and also a TV show I used to love, Awkward. Do you ever hear about that one?
No.
It was an MTV TV show about a bunch of high school kids. And I used to think it was hilarious. I thought it was a great show. So he wrote on that. We have Kaylee Cuoco, who's also an executive producer, but she plays Cassie, the main character. Big Bang Theory, obviously, is her big thing. She also has a show on HBO Max beside this, the Harley Quinn animated TV show. She voices Harley Quinn.
I did know that.
Which is super fun. And I think she's trying to, like, burst out of that sitcom bubble and get a little bit more into mature content here. So Michael Huseman, I think is his name. He plays Alex, the dude who gets his throat slit. Me and you knew him from The Haunting of Hill House.
And he's great.
We're big fans of that. But I didn't know this. Most people will know him from Game of Thrones.
Yeah, we don't watch that.
We don't watch that, but that's what his big thing was at the beginning.
Okay.
Also, I forgot he was in this, The Invitation.
Yes.
He plays the creepy cultish dude married to his ex-wife.
Yep.
Like, I totally forgot he was in that.
That's
which
true.
is fun. If you haven't seen The Invitation, go watch it. Amazing. We have Zozia Mamet, who plays Annie.
I loved her.
Yeah, she was great. She's most known for the TV show Girls,
Okay.
which
don't know
I
that
hear
one.
is a great TV show. I kind of want to check it out, but I don't know if it's really my style, but
Okay.
we'll see. She was also in The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt quite a bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm not interested in
Yeah,
watching
I watched
that.
the first season of that. I thought it was weird and dumb, but,
Yeah.
whatever. We have T.R. Knight. He played Davey, which was Cassie's gay brother.
Yep.
I mentioned him
Love
because he was a main character on Grey's Anatomy for many, many, many seasons.
His face looked very familiar to me.
Yeah, so if you're a fan of Grey's Anatomy, you definitely would know who this guy is. We have Michelle Gomez, who played Miranda. I think probably one of my favorite characters, Miranda the assassin.
Amazing.
She was so good in that role.
Yeah.
Most people will know her from Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and she also had a really big part on a Doctor Who season.
Ah.
Yeah, so if you're a Doctor Who fan, you're definitely going to know who Michelle Gomez is. I think she was maybe the assistant apprentice. I forget what they call the partner in the Doctor Who. It has a name, like his partner has a name.
You're
or
asking the
something.
wrong person.
Yeah. So Michelle Gomez though killed it as that assassin.
Yeah.
She's great. I love it, and I love when they teamed up.
You know what's funny is she reminded me. So you know how in James Bond, it's not like a universe I'm very familiar with,
Yeah.
but M, is that
Yes.
the one's name?
Q.
Q.
His partner that makes all the gadgets.
No,
and everything.
M, the one that's like his boss,
Oh,
the
yeah, M.
old lady. Yeah, but she's kind of like a
Jane Judy
badass,
Dench.
but she's like very witty and stuff like
Yes.
that. I'm like, I imagine that this was like M when she was an agent.
Yes, that's so.
Yeah, like
that's so
that's what the
accurate.
vibe she gave me. Like she
Yeah.
was still like kind of foreign and funny and quip and like quip.
Well, she quipped a lot. She did quip quite a bit. She had a quippy.
But yeah, like that kind of
substance.
personality, like, you know what I mean? I
Yeah.
thought she did an amazing
did
job.
great.
Fascinating character.
She did great. So Nolan Funk, he played the guy FBI agent. I forget his name in the show. I didn't look it up. I didn't care. I wanted to mention him because he was also in Awkward, which is, remember, I'm like, I recognize him.
Yeah, you did
But
say
this is
that.
what I recognize him from. He was in Arrow he had 3-episode arc where he was, I think, Blood something Blood was his name. He was
Oh.
trying to become the mayor of the Glades and stuff.
Oh.
So I was like, that's where I know him from. But he's also a main character in Glee.
Okay.
Like a guy that recurred quite a bit in Glee.
Didn't recognize him.
Yeah. We have Rosie Perez plays Megan. Rosie Perez is a pretty big name. The only thing I really know, I don't know a lot. She was in White Men Can't Jump, I think, back in the day. She's a pretty big actress, but more recently she was in Birds of Prey, which I was unfamiliar. I didn't know. We haven't
Yeah, I
checked
don't know that
movie
one.
out yet, but I was like, oh, that'd be cool to see Rosie Perez in that.
Yeah.
We have Jason Jones, who plays Cassie's dad. And remember, I said,
Yeah, I knew him
recognize
from something. Yeah.
Do you want to know what it is?
Yeah.
He's Tony from How I Met Your Mother, Stella's ex-husband.
Yes.
Who writes that
He's
movie
in
about
something
Ted
else
Mosby.
too, though.
That's the thing where I'm like, oh, that's what I know
Yeah.
him from.
I could see that though,
Yeah,
for sure.
He's skinny in this though. He was kind of stockier in How I Met Your Mother, but in this he looked kind of
Oh, I thought they
emaciated
looked
a
the
little
same.
bit.
I
Oh,
thought
really?
he looked the same.
I
He
thought
looked
his
like a
face
beer
looked-
gut dad.
I thought his face looks skinnier.
I think they just always showed the bad lighting because
Maybe.
he's supposed to be not a good guy.
Yeah, maybe. So Cecilia, which is a character that Miranda calls a few times. Not a huge character, but she's around in a few episodes. That her name is Brianna Cuoco, Kaylee's little sister, who also shows up in an episode of Big Bang Theory
There
in the
you
later
go.
seasons. And then last I want to mention here is Blake Neely was the composer of this TV show. He does most of the Greg Berlanti stuff, all the Arrow stuff and the DC Legends of Tomorrow. That's his go-to composer. But he also composes the music for You.
Oh.
And he composed all the music for The Keepers, that documentary we watched about the
the
Catholic
nun.
Church and
Oh,
nun
that
and
was
stuff.
yeah,
So
fascinating.
this dude's a great composer. He
Yeah.
has a very it's kind of reminds me of what Jason Segel does in Forgetting Sarah Marshall. It's
Yes.
atmospheric and dark. That's
Yes.
kind of the music. But I got to tell you, one really cool thing about this TV show is it is not a TV show to veg out to. It is hectic. The way they
Yeah.
film it, the content and the music just makes you so anxious the whole time. Like the theme song for this is the most like anxiety-inducing music ever.
The theme song and the theme reminds me of Catch Me If You Can. I know you're not super familiar with that movie, but it's the same
It's like
thing.
the fast piano. It's like...
Yeah. And then it's like the little cartoons like running around and trying to like chase each other. I'm like, it's Catch Me If You Can.
Mm-hmm. So I like this guy as a composer. I think he does good. The music on that is literally just like, I have a synthesizer and I'm hitting 2 notes for 30 seconds.
But it does a good job.
It does a good job.
It does a good job.
What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah. What is facts? Baby, they're fun. They're fun. Oh yeah.
Let's talk about some fun facts of this movie.
Okay.
Before we're going to do fun facts, and then we'll talk about the book differences at the end.
Okay.
So the first fun fact here is Buckley, who ends up being an assassin who's just trying to seduce her to, like, you know, the big twist is the guy she's been sleeping with and is kind of becoming like boyfriend, girlfriend with. He ends up being like an assassin who was hired to kill her. Well, he is in the back of every scene. If you actually go back and watch, and the directors and writers and everyone were saying we were scared people were going to pick him out, but I didn't.
No, not at all.
When I think it's about an episode before the twist happened, we were like, I think Buckley has something to do with this. Even then, I couldn't find him in the background, so they did a good job of hiding him. I thought that was good. And when they do the reveal, we're like, oh, he's been following her this whole time. It's not reshot material. It's literally the same scene that they showed you, just like they're focusing on him. So he was there. It wasn't like, oh, in the scene you watched, he wasn't there, so there was no way for you to find it kind of thing. Kaley Cuoco drastically changed her acting in each take to give the editors a ton of film to work with for all the sporadic and nervous breakdown shots. So how you were saying when she was in the hotel room and she was like having a nervous break, she filmed that in multiple different ways that were significantly different so they could pull and grab from all these different takes and made it feel even more sporadic.
Right.
Which is why she would be like, hair over here, then hair over here, and then like, and it was just like, you could feel how just crazy that scene was. For sure. By that, which I thought was a fun little like way to do that. You know, like you're not just doing a take after take where it's similar but slightly different. It's like drastically different.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was fun. So principal photography of this season was interrupted in March 2020 due to COVID-19, of course. So they took several months off before finishing, and I believe it was only the finale that they had to finish, and they had to get it done in time. So what happened was they started shooting in New York again in August and finished in October. And if you watch, this was also the first production to come back after COVID to get everything done. But if you watch in all the final season, and I started like when I was watching this YouTube video talking about it, I'm like, oh, that's so funny. I didn't notice it at first. There's tons of social distancing. Like when they're in the FBI room, when Annie goes there, you notice they're all on separate sides of the room and they're trying to play it off like, oh, we're sitting talking, but like they're like super far away from each other.
Interesting.
And like like if you just watch, everyone is super social distance in the finale. That's funny. So I thought that was pretty interesting. On Dax Shepard's podcast, Armchair Expert, he had Kaley Cuoco on, and she admits that she optioned the rights to the book, the book is by Christopher A. Pahojlian. Prior to reading it. So like I said earlier, like she just knew this thing was going to be good just based off of the description, but she had never read it before she optioned it. So I thought that was very interesting. Michael Huseman, the guy who plays Alex, said during an interview in April 2021 that Kaley Cuoco had difficulty filming sex scenes with him, and he suspects it was because she had never filmed a passionate love scene during her career. She wasn't used to it and couldn't relax. He said, "We're making out on the bed under the covers. We're doing our first scene like that, and I noticed she was sort of hovering on top of me. She's not really sitting on my legs. After take 3, she starts to shake a little bit, and I'm like, Kaley, what are you doing? Just sit down." And it turned out that she was so uncomfortable and she had no idea how to do this thing. She was trying not to touch me. So like literally if you watch like the sex scenes in Big Bang Theory, like they're just under
They're
covers.
never sex
They're never
scenes,
doing anything. This was the first time she'd ever been in anything that required her to do like passionate, and it was like kids doing their first kiss on camera.
I always think that would be so awkward because it's not just the cameraman, it's the director and 50,000 people.
Yeah.
Not to mention you probably barely know this person. Yep. It's probably one of the first things you're shooting with them.
Yeah.
Like,
which is almost endearing that this girl who you think is so like she plays all these characters that are so like sexually active, but she
Yeah.
is such like a
Well, I remember reading even with the 50 Shades of Grey cast,
Yes.
like, so like obviously they had to get very intimate, but then they would take like a 6-month break and then they would have to do reshoots and it would be like really awkward again because
Yeah.
you're like, okay, well, like, I don't know. I'm like, that has to be one of the hardest things to do.
I would hate filming sex scenes, obviously, because I would feel so awkward doing it.
It would just be a little.
Yeah, that's the one thing as an actor I probably would look the least forward to.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
nice that he kind of made like a joke of it too, because I'm
Yeah.
like, it could very easily become very awkward
Well,
for
let's
the
be honest.
person.
He was in Game of Thrones. He was no
He was probably like,
stranger
"Girl, this is
to sex
fine."
scenes. Yeah, so he's like, just sit on my legs. It's fine. Like,
But it's true. I'm like, you could prepare all this stuff. Like, you can prepare, like, you're crying and how you're going to get emotional. But I'm like, until you have a partner there with you,
Yeah.
you can't, like, prepare for these scenes.
it's true. It's so true. So the plot of the show has many similarities with the plot of the book Crime and Punishment, which makes sense because
Yep.
Crime and Punishment was a book that
Yeah.
featured heavily in this show. Both of them feature a protagonist who struggles with insanity after being involved in a murder. And, of course, the book really... I guess we are doing spoilers. The book is what contains the codes for the $1 million,
Right.
So, yeah, that's all my fun facts. I thought the most, funny one was just the fact that she,
Yes.
was, trying to hover over him during a sex scene. That's so funny.
You're like, I don't think that's how people do it, but
Yeah,
okay.
okay. So let's talk about the differences between the book and the TV show here before we kind of, get out of it. I think this is a little bit of a quicker episode.
Yeah.
We're literally just being like, look, go check this out.
It's really
fun.
good,
It's
yeah.
really good. Even if we didn't agree with the ending,
Correct.
I'm gonna check season 2 out. I'm gonna see what they're gonna do.
Yeah, we have to.
I thought it was entertaining throughout the whole thing, and the ending didn't ruin it for me. It just wasn't necessarily what I thought was gonna happen.
Right.
Which, to your point, you thought, well, in the grand scheme of things, maybe it'll make more sense when you watch season 2 and 3.
Absolutely.
You're like, oh, that makes a little bit more sense. But also the fact this show is just haphazard the whole time. You're kind of like, yeah, it makes sense. There's a haphazard ending.
I
too.
guess.
All right, so the differences of the book. I don't have a jingle for this, so I'm just going for it. In the book, Miranda is the killer, not Buckley. So Miranda
that's
actually
a big
kills
difference.
Alex.
Okay.
Yes. Cassie is actually in bed when Miranda kills Alex, which is also a big difference. But she spares her life because she's asleep, and she doesn't wake up. She's so drunk.
Okay.
And Miranda's not one to just kill, especially another woman, without either
Yes.
being paid or having reason to.
Got
Where
it.
they make it seem like Buckley's kind of just an insane person who will kill
Right.
anyone. Miranda is killed by Felix at the end.
Okay.
So in this one, Miranda's still alive, and she kind of goes off into the sunset, and we don't really hear from her again, which I assume she'll be in the second season.
Of course.
Enrico, the random dude who showed up in Rome all the time, and Cassie actually defeat Felix in the hotel room, and Felix kills himself because he fails to kill Cassie, and he's actually part of the Russian mob, and they are going to kill him because he failed, so he just decides to off himself.
Well, that's a little intense.
Yep. Although Cassie does become a CIA agent at the end of the book, Shane is not an undercover agent, but just a flight attendant. So the CIA actually, approaches her to make her an agent after all of this.
I don't understand that
I don't get that either.
reasoning.
Yeah, I don't get that either. Here's one thing I wish that was in the book that I thought they were going to explore more, is that Cassie is actually an experienced gun shooter from hunting as a kid with her dad.
Yes, that makes sense.
That makes sense, but in the book, that makes sense. In here, they're like, oh, she goes hunting with her dad all the time, but then she doesn't know how to handle a gun.
Correct.
So I'm like, well, I feel like you would at least
Also,
know how
they
to
didn't
handle
really
a
talk
gun.
about her hunting a bunch. They kind of just talked about her drinking a bunch, and then they kind of just showed since they
Dead
grew up in
deer.
a rural town, you put the two pieces together.
Yeah, there's a dead deer in the trunk sometimes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. Megan's character in the book is much smaller, and she's actually a Russian spy.
Well, they changed a lot of things.
Yeah, in the book, they don't develop her story at all. It's just they're just yeah, and Megan's there, and she's a Russian spy. And that's as deep as they get with it, where this one, she becomes a whole character.
Yeah.
And she doesn't know she's doing treason until it's too late and everything.
She knows she's doing something, but she doesn't
knows
know
she's doing corporate espionage. That's a lot different than treason.
Yeah. I'm just saying,
Treason-
she knew she was doing stuff she wasn't supposed to.
Yeah.
She knew she was being sneaky. She knew she was getting paid hundreds of thousands
She
of
thought
dollars.
the worst that would happen is if she got caught, her husband would get fired.
Yes.
That would be didn't realize,
Which they never really 100% developed even her motive.
No. Well, her motive was in Total True Lies. where it's just the whole idea of like Jamie Lee Curtis's character was just like a bored housewife and wanted to do something more and thought it was exciting and exhilarating.
Yeah, but I'm saying like
I think is the most unrealistic catalyst for a character doing something. Like anytime in a movie or a book where they're like, I'm just a bored housewife, so I'm doing these things because I want an exciting life. I'm like, I don't believe that for 1 second. Like I
believe you could probably like go skydiving one day, but that you're gonna actually commit like you're gonna break some laws and stuff and potentially get your husband fired. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I don't believe that part.
Not be like seedy
it
USB
could be true.
drive.
I just don't believe it.
Me neither. And then the final thing, biggest difference, and I'm so glad they didn't put it in the show because I feel like this is just like CW written all over it.
Oh, no.
Soap opera written all over it. So freaking stupid, and they don't need it.
That Alex comes back to life.
Cassie is pregnant with Alex's baby after their one-night stand.
Dear Lord, no.
So glad they didn't put that.
So she's going to be a pregnant CIA agent.
She was
from
a
her
pregnant lady drinking that heavily, flying around all over the place to then be a CIA agent.
No.
Why do they have to do the pregnant thing?
I hate that.
It's the biggest,
I'm
stupidest
so glad that they did
stereotype.
not do that.
Yeah.
That is
I'm
ridiculous.
so happy. So freaking happy. Like if that was a story point at the end, like that was a big twist.
We would
at the
not
end,
watch it again.
I would be like, I'm done with this.
I'm
like
not watching it.
I can get away with Shane being a CIA agent, whatever.
Yeah.
If she was like, and I'm pregnant,
And they're like, guess what? Your baby's gonna be a CIA agent.
oh my god,
Like, oh my god,
I would be so done with this.
Stop.
So done with it. So that's the show.
Oh my gosh.
I don't think I'm ever going to read the book because the book sounds way worse than the TV show
Oh
was.
gosh, it had so many good points, but it sounds like maybe some really bad points too.
Yeah. So great show. Check it out. HBO Max.
Yeah.
Not much more to say about it.
Also, there is one thing I want to say. I know we like covered a lot of spoilers. If you haven't seen it, maybe you're like, why do I need to watch it? I already saw this. I'm like, it is beautifully shot.
Oh.
There are like
cool.
so many things. They do cool things where like when she's in the hotel room and then the window turns into like a scene or like a rainbow or like something. Like it's just so beautiful. And then it's like all these like weird cut scenes and stuff. Like it's entertaining just to watch that part of it.
Cinematography
it is
on point.
Beautiful. And Kayla Cuoco was phenomenal.
I'll tell you
amazing.
what, it's kind of a bummer because if you're listening to my voice right now, we just like talked about this show and you know all about it. I think the thing that was cool for me is I knew nothing about this show. I hadn't seen a commercial or a preview.
No, me neither.
I literally had only seen the poster. So I was like, okay, cool, let's give this a shot. Like you were mentioning you wanted to see it. I was like, well, Kaylee Cuoco, I want to kind of see what she's got.
Yeah.
They start the show off, which it's hard to do in this day and age because trailers give so much away now, and they kind of want you to know a little bit of the premise. You know what you're getting into. So going into it blind like I did, it's a little bit harder. But they started off almost like it's a romantic comedy show. Like it's like a lot of fun electronic pop music.
And like her like drinking out at the club.
And hanging out. And then like they have this like this chemistry and there's like one night stand's gonna happen. Then all of a sudden she's like she wakes up next to a dead person with a throat slit. And it just like drops from there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the first 5 minutes of this show made me think I was going to be watching like some weird like Master of None where it was going to get like real dramatized and like be more of like a comedy drama and stuff.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's just like, nope.
No.
This is going to be like a suspense thriller.
Yeah.
Crazy movie.
They did a really good job.
Yeah. So I was like, that's fun that they filmed it that way and made it seem like it would like subvert your expectation if you're coming into it not knowing a single thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It really made that twist of like her waking up and seeing his dead body. Like I was just like,
whoa. You were just as shocked as she was.
I was like, oh, it's this kind of show. Okay, I'm with it. I'm with it now.
It was really good.
Yeah. So go check that out. In the next few weeks, I think we're going to be doing some things like Flubber, Hook, Bicentennial Man, few other Robin Williams movies. I can't remember what we put on the list.
I think you said like Photo Cut, 1 hour photo.
1 hour photo, maybe.
Called?
I think we're going to do Death to Smoochie on a Patreon episode.
There
so
you
if
go.
you want to hear that, go give us $1 a month. Big plug there.
Yep.
Also, you get a bunch of other content, which is great, if I do say so myself. Otherwise, if you want to support us in a non-financial way, hey, go over to wreckmypodcast.com. You can check out our Instagram there. Give us a follow. You can check out our Redbubble store, buy some merch. Otherwise, go to Apple Podcast and give us a review. If you give us a review, we'll send you a sticker. So, you know, that's what you get for that. I mean, we appreciate a 5-star review, but any review you give us is going to get a 5-star or a 5.
It's a 5-star.
It's going to get a 5-star sticker is what it's going to get.
That's it.
But yeah, pretty much. I thoroughly enjoy this. I would recommend it.
Yep.
If you want some more Robin Williams content, tune back later. But we're giving you Kaylee Cuoco content this week. It would have been funny if they had like Johnny Galecki or someone like pop up in a scene, but I feel like that'd be going a little too far.
Yeah, I feel like it would take you out of it for sure.
Way too much. Also, dude who played Alex, he's like
amazing.
I mean, like I almost want to watch Game of Thrones just to see him because I love him so much.
Honestly, we've been hearing a lot about how we need to watch it. I'm like, should we just try? Because don't you have the first season on DVD, or do we sell it?
We have HBO Max. That's what it's on. We can just stream it. But I actually did own the first season on Blu-ray. I gave it away at a live podcasting event before COVID when we did. My
problem is I really don't like the overly violent stuff, and I feel like that's all it's gonna be.
Yeah, that's why Lord of the Rings is way more our
I love Lord of the Rings. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I agree.
But this isn't the Lord of the Rings podcast.
No, sorry.
This is the Flight Attendant podcast. So you know what? Everyone, jump on that flight, put your seats in the upright and locked position, put those tray tables up, and get ready for the outro song. Okay, everyone? We'll talk to you next week.
Bye.
Wreck My Podcast.